Hey guys, I've got 4 tables of 100 NL here on Stars PA. So I figured I'd make a quick play and explain video, maybe something like 20-30 minutes or so. Um, yeah, so let's jump into it. If there's any like downtime or anything boring, I'll probably just try and cut that out of the finished video. But yeah, let's jump in. We will defend the King 7 of Spades. We get the check back on 10-6 deuce, and we turn the nut flush draw. This turn is going to be good for his range. So we are going to do a lot of checking on the ace. I'm just trying to think if this hand wants to make it into our bets. I think king high is like a decent hand to try and check and face a check back with like a worse hand a decent amount of the time, like some queen x and jack x. Our hand is also good enough to check call or check raise, so I'll probably just check it over. We face the small bet in position here. I assume that if he had a good hand, it would just go much larger, so I'm just going to spring on this and make it like very large. We get it through. It's entirely possible that we could have just led the turn, and I would probably use something like an overbet. I think even on the ace, it's disconnected enough. But I think when it's a fish, you can check and allow them to make a little bit more mistakes in some spots like that. I think they'll really telegraph their hand strength with like their size, timing, if they check or not. So they won't understand how to construct like a correct size and strategy there in position. So I prefer letting them make a mistake and then pounce on it if I see that, if I see the opportunity to do that. And for the record, by the way, the green tag is like recreational fish type player. They can be tagged that for doing something bad, but usually it's like sitting on like a short stack and not topping up, or like limping, something like that. But sometimes they get it just by being, making an interesting play. The dark blue here is like a reg on the tighter side, not as creative, not as strong. Like I would, the tag itself is called knit reg, but yeah, it's just generally not as strong of a reg. And the yellow, which this guy is, for example, that's like good reg or just like a solid reg, 5-6 suited here. I could play a flat to try and play with the fun player and the big blind. I think I'll just throw that in here just because his 3-bet stat is a little low. And I don't think I'll get squeezed that often. And if I do, I think we have a good fold. Well, it depends on the size and what in position does. So start with the check there. We will open the ace-jack off on table 2. On this 9, I think we'll probably just keep checking our 6. Face the overbet to multiple players here. Over here on table 3 with the ace-jack, with the ace of diamonds, I think we probably have to float with the ace of diamonds, but I'm already going to be folding a lot because of the size. And over here, I'm just going to fold. I just don't expect overbet into 2 people to be that bluffed, although this player does spring on a lot of weakness, I believe, so I'm not too sure about that. But we're just in a pretty terrible situation because we're out of position. We'll call, and on a ton of rivers be blown off our hand. So over here, I'm just going to fold. Yeah. Not much more to say about that. And the orange, by the way, is for a aggressive recreational player, like an aggro fish. So, yeah, a little bit more spewy type of player. We will open the ace-4 off, blind versus blind. We do get offered to get on another table. Let me see if this is a good table. Beatrix. I'll just stay on these 4 for now. Open the ace-5 suited. I'm gonna check back the jack-6 suited. I'm not sure if this guy's playing limp re-raises. I doubt it, but I'm gonna open this with all the fish at the table. Typically, a lot of these suited hands just want to check back to try to realize equity. You could put this one into a ISO as well, or a raise as well. But when we get the check on this drive aboard, I'm just gonna bet. We have some backdoor potential. Don't expect the checks to be super balanced in a limp line like this. Turns a 7. He will have some 7x that floats. Like he'll have a 7-8, 10-7. Even 6-7, I think, with like the connectivity and how small I bet. I think we have some better bluffing candidates in position here on the turn. I think we just make the fold here. It's always worth checking, you know, if there's any room for creativity, like turning a unconventional hand into a bluff. But I don't typically see fish bluff like check down lines a lot. Like it's typically they're trying to play pretty passive to get to the river when they have like a weak hand. So that removes a lot of like the air in his range that'll just snap fold to my raise. And we flatted the 9-5 suited here to a min open. Turns a 7. We don't face a c-bet on the king 10-6, like relatively disconnected. I think that's worth noting. In terms of size here, I'm going to play big, and I'm going to use this hand. I'll go slightly over pot. I would go even more than that, like 2x pot, if the board wasn't as connected as it was. Like if there wasn't a straight that came in on the turn, because in theory, I think some of those really monstrous sizes start to go away once those turns are connected like that. So, but I still want to use a big size there, and attack what's pretty capped and going to be pretty underdefended from the recreational player. And it's nice that our 5-9 is pretty nice. We have a little bit of equity, and depending on river, we have a good bluff as well. Well, I was going to replace this table, but I'm not going to do that now. Let's just move this table over here. Great flop for aces over here, the 7-8-9 two-tone. Place a small bet here. His c-bet flop is only around 2/3 of the time, so I'm not going to check raise this time. I would like get very aggressively raising, but I think you can go either way here. Aces here facing this pretty bad board. With the club, I'm going to check back. Blind versus blind here on the 6-6-5. I think you could go either way. I'm going to start with a check. And we're going to fold to the overbet over here. And we will just call. Ace high is going to be good a lot of the time. What an interesting run out over here, huh? We make a pair on the turn. face half pot. I think this is pretty easy fold. I don't know what hand is going to bet turn and then on the river be nothing, especially for like a recreational player. And basically anything that's anything here is going to be beating me. He's never going to be like value betting one pair. So just going to make the fold over there. Here we obviously have to continue with the flush draw and the pair. Not a great river, but check it over. This is a very interesting size. I don't think he ever takes his size with like a 4. He could maybe do it with like a 6. I still think that's unlikely. I think this is probably thin value, but getting these odds, I think he can still have probably like 7-8, for example. So I think I just have to call here. Queen 10 off. All right. Very interesting. Over here we flop 2 pair, and I'm just gonna fast play. I think with bottom 2 I'm blocking the ace. And this guy is a little bit on the loose side and the aggressive side, so it is a bit of an argument to just try and trap. But I also think that means he's going to be less prone to folding marginal hands. So we're going to throw in check raise here. We'll make it 12 big blinds. We're here. I think this is button versus big blinds. I'm just going to start with a range bet. You could play overbet and check on like these double broadways. But I'm just going to play with a range c-bet there. Hero folds the ace, which is good to note. Good fold by him. Over here, we turn 2 pair. So I think I'm just going to be playing overbet and check on this disconnected turn. And in terms of the exact size, I think you can use all the way up to like 200% pot. I'm going to go for like 150. Or maybe like 175. Take it down. We will open 6-5 suited. We get 3-bet 4x by this player, who doesn't 3-bet very often, but who we are on the deeper side with. Unfortunately, I think this hand is not good enough to continue versus 4x, but he is a bit of a weaker player, and get a load of this. How about, you thought 4x was big, how about 5x over here? So it's definitely close, but if this player raised smaller and or was a little less tight on the 3-bets, then I'd continue, but I think it's a pretty big leak for players to like sort of pure call suited connectors versus like late position 3-bets. It really is like dynamic based. It's player based. It's obviously it's like, you know, it's size based as well. And the exact positions matter, and the exact hand you have matters. But I think it's a big leak for any player who just like pure calls every suited connector versus 3-bet. Same thing with pocket pairs. It's gonna be losing. And in theory, like, you're just supposed to mix all of those pocket pairs a lot of the time. But I think a good way to sort of regulate your frequencies as a human being is to make it spot dependent. So take a look at the size they use, the type of player, the exact positions. That's how you can sort of regulate your frequencies, and just pick the spots that you think work a little bit better. And for those little micro factors that I identified, I thought it was fine to just let go of the 5-6. Over here, blind versus blind is an 8-high board. I'm going to be playing a lot of these boards as checks, just basically range checks, and let these players kind of go ham. We face pot, and our hand definitely wants to continue, but versus pot, it's already very close. Over here, we're just going to try and get on ace high. Unfortunately, I block some of like the intuitive bluffs that could be used. Like I kind of want him to have 10-9 of clubs and pot it. I'm trying to get inside the mind of like a recreational player for the kinds of cards I don't want to have. So I'm just gonna let this go versus pot. I have seen him use some other probe sizes here on the flop when check too. So I think pot is just gonna be on the stronger side. But that one doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to like fold nut equity with like the gut shot. But you know. So we get the limp again over here. I think you could go either way with fours. I'm gonna just be aggressive because I want to be more aggressive post flop against a player like this, and this hand could, you know, obviously benefit from just raising pre. We take it down. So he is playing limp folds. Some players don't have any limp folds, by the way, when they limp small blind and you ISO and they call. So he is playing limp folds, which is good to know. We get 3-bet blind versus blind. I think this player, I don't have many hands on him, but I think he seems pretty competent, and I know pocket deuces is probably a fold, or I think mostly a fold at least. Blind versus blind, and now sometimes I would continue versus like a weaker player, but I'm just going to play correct in this instance. The playability is very limited out of position with a hand like that, so. So we get the check back on 6-3-3. I think a lot of players are just going to be betting all of their overpairs, like c-betting all of their overpairs. So I think this is going to be a lot of like ace high, king high, you know, other hands with like 2 cards with equity. So I am going to bet. In terms of size, I think we can go pretty large. This board is quite good for us. Over here on the Jack 10-6, versus this aggressive player, I'm just going to start with a check. But I will be betting this board at high frequency usually. So we get the call, and now we're playing with king high. And I think it's very easy to overbluff this spot because of how often I'm going to be betting the turn into the perceived weakness. So I am going to give this one up because I think we chop with some king high. And he has the ace high, which a lot of players don't fold to almost any size bluff on those double pair boards. So over here, versus big blind 3-bet, I think we're just gonna let go of king 10 suited. If there was like an over 3-better, you could consider continuing or 4-bet bluffing, but I'm just gonna let it go because I don't think big blind is gonna be 3-bet enough. Over here, just gonna make the call. I know this player is pretty aggressive, and we're in a very weak line. But yeah, he could definitely have a jack or an ace. He has the ace. I think having a 10 there is a pretty good for a call. Pretty good factor. Could also consider raising, but this player is very sticky, which is, you know, part of the reason that I think raising will underperform. I think a lot of those top pairs are going to be hard to make fold. So we actually get cold called by the big blind here. Off of like a 40 big blind stack and then get a low board. So obviously the cold call at a normal depth is going to be very like 9s, 10s, jacks, some like ace, queen, king, jack, some like suited broadways and stuff like that. I sort of block some of those hands. And this board is not great for my perceived range as well, so I'm not going to have a lot of credibility if I start bluffing king, queen off. On the turn, check is interesting. I think he can still have worse, like a king, jack suited, jack 10 suited, king, queen, or like, you know, king, queen chop. So I'm going to check again. In terms of 5x, I think I probably have the advantage. I don't know if he ever cold calls. I think we'll probably just try and take our showdown with the king high. Yeah. As I suspected, we will be chopping sometimes. Over here, we'll just 3-bet the tens. Get the king, jack, deuce. I'm going to range bet this board small. It helps to have the 10 of hearts. Because in theory, I don't think these boards get completely range bet, but I'm going to range bet them. And if I wasn't going to range bet them, I think the 10 of hearts is a good factor for doing so. That's basically what I'm saying. In terms of size, you can use like a small size. I'll just go something like that. We get the call. Turn a flush draw. So I think the size that I took, basically any pair with a heart is going to continue. So we are still ahead of a lot of hands. And he leads half pot, which is very interesting. So I do block a lot of flushes. However, I don't block any nut flushes. Well, I block one combo of nut flushes, I guess. Just going to let this one go. I think the 10 of hearts is like a good hand you could start bluffing with even, like a queen 10 off or something like that. So maybe not offsuit because he called a 3-bet, but you know. I think I'll probably just let this one go. Over here we have trips, like a relatively weak trips. I think I'm going to start betting the turn. I'm going to use a small size because I think I want to be able to value bet a jack. So my main size is going to be small here. We will 3-bet the nine, the pocket queens here. The river king. It's tough because we don't target a lot. We could still target a jack with a small bet, so I'm going to block. I don't think we're going to get raised very often on this exact run out. And I think we probably have to call a raise. So he folds a jack there, which is another good thing to know. So he likes making hero folds, which is good to know. So we 3-bet, and the board comes 7-4-5. So I think we can play checks on this board. With the queen of spades, we could throw in a check as well. I'm going to let him sort of telegraph his hand strength a little bit on the turn here. So he goes like 2/3. He could still have overpairs on beating. Some flush draws. Not a great river. We do block some flushes. It's interesting sizing. I'm pretty certain a full house would go a bit larger. If he had like, you know, a set that's now a boat. And even I think a flush probably goes a bit larger. And we do block some of those. And I don't think he's going to be having too many offsuit hands with the queen to bluff with. So I think I probably have to call. Oh, this is strange. We're just chopping a lot. Chop those. Interesting that he still went with like a decently large size, no spade overpair there. But I think it makes sense after, in the exact line that I took is like a little capped. I mean, it is just sort of a capping spot, like that texture. But yeah, I'm trying to play very like reflexively towards the type of player I'm playing against. So if it's like a weaker player, I'm trying to treat their behavior as more face up. And fortunately, we haven't gotten too many spots with regs yet, so I can like really try and play theoretically sound. But I think it's also interesting to just be playing against players who are maybe a little bit too face up. Queen deuce suited versus under the gun. Off of only 40 big blinds. That's close. I'm just gonna let it go. This guy's a little bit too tight. Stacks are a little short. Oh, I forgot to mention what the light blue is. Light blue is like tight fish, so yeah, usually they get that for having like a low 3-bet stat and being a fish. Or maybe if I eventually realize like they're never bluffing. You know. We'll go for like 5-10 more minutes. Generally, this pool is pretty good. A lot of recreational players like come through and like play, especially like after working hours. So there's like a big chunk of every day where like the games are really, really good. Obviously, they're pretty good all the time. It's only 100 NL in like a Pennsylvania fenced pool. Versus the min open off from an unknown. I'm just gonna continue with the Jack 8 off just for the video. I don't know if this will get in there. But yeah, the pool's been good. I've been running pretty bad in my like official grind of this stake, but I'm starting to recover a little bit, so I'll probably be giving everybody an update on how that's looking somewhat soon, and hopefully things are a little bit better in 2025. Versus the like half-ish size bet, we're just gonna play call. My bet's big. It's good to have a jack for sure, because we block hands like jacks and ace-jack. But I don't know how I feel about the 8. I'm just gonna let this one go. Over here, this is a little awkward because this guy has a short stack, so if I squeeze, I probably get shoved on a lot, which is fine with ace-5 suited, but I'm going to play this one as a call this time, just to try and play multi-way with like a hand that really wants to make the nuts. It's pretty playable. Especially with like, I want to be a little bit deeper with this player as well. So he gets half into multiple players there on a mono board. That's already very strong, so I already don't like this. But I don't think we can fold yet, because he will just have some like naked flush draws. Flop trips over here. Turns a king. I think I'll probably start betting just to target a king. Okay, we're getting a lot of hands here. Here, I think we probably check call. And over here, I think we showed on our king high. And we have a pretty good hand up here. I think I'm going to let him raise a king. And we're going to shove our own kings over here. Take it down. This will also get him to call a lot of pocket pairs. We already seen this guy has a propensity to make a hero fold, so I like the smaller size. He might feel like now that we've seen him... Okay, so he does fold, or he does raise, so he probably has a king. I don't know why I just had like that nervous pang, you know, you get when you see someone raise on you in the river. Like, I might not be good here when I have quads, which is really funny, so... yeah, I'm just going to shove, and he's going to show me a king that he folds, but, yeah. Oh, he snap folds. He had a bluff. that's another good thing about using the block size there. It is gonna read weak. Like, be in his position when you have just like an offsuit hand that has a busted flush draw or something, or um, and then seeing me block on that run out. What was the exact board? Yeah. So a suited hand that was a busted flush draw. And then like you're gonna want to attack it, because the board is scary, and I will have some block folds. Because I will probably be blocking some pairs there, which are like small full houses, and then versus 3.5. I think we're just gonna let go of that off. Blind versus blind, that could be a mistake. I'm not sure about that, but the fact that he's like a solid reg makes it so I'm not gonna be expanding my range to play there, and because I know I have to condense my range because use a slightly larger size, I think 10-9 off might be close. I'm not sure. Start with a check over there. Face pot on this board. This board's very good for his range, obviously. We'll open the king 8 off just for fun here. I think it's a mix. I'm gonna make the fold. So I'm gonna call just one big blind. They could have a worse 3 in this limped. Actually, can they even have a worse 3? Maybe like 3-4, 5-3. But really, it's because I have equity to like 2 pair and a decent trips. So I'm gonna call. And what do you know? I will let this guy barrel if he has a straight draw or something like that. There's an argument for the fact that we probably did let him realize a little bit of equity there. I just don't think a lead makes sense, even in a limped pot. Do we call and lead river, or just raise here? I think I probably raise here. In terms of size, we'll go like this big. Over here, we're 4 ways. I'm going to bet really small just to get raised by a 6. Very interesting. So he called pretty quick. And then I don't think anything comes in on the river except like 10-9, which I don't think he would ever have here. So I could check and let him bluff. I don't know if this guy is capable of bluffing a busted draw here, though. Like, he will just show me 4-5. So maybe I'll... well, we'll put him to the test. We'll see if he bluffs a bad hand. I do block some calls with the jack. If I had a different 2 pair, it's a consideration for doing something else, but it's very interesting. That's not what you want to see, I'll give you that. But unfortunately, I don't think we can fold because he can use the bluff that I mentioned. He can put it in that size, so. Oh, wow. Rivered better 2 pair. What do you know? That's quite unfortunate. We'll call the king 10 suited here. But yeah, he could definitely just put a bluff into that size. Alright, we'll probably wrap it up shortly. Good flop for us, obviously. I'm just going to be betting range. In terms of size, you go like 20% pot. I'll use a quarter. He does make the call. I think I'll have basically all of those like suited aces, because I don't think people are folding those enough pre. Versus a different player, you could consider 4-bet bluffing. So I'm just going to bet like geometric, somewhat geometric, to try and get stacks in. Let's see if 37 goes in. It's not quite enough. Do that. So yeah, the exploit in that hand is obviously I don't think people fold their suited aces enough pre. And I also think they float offsuit hands that they probably shouldn't have, so they're going to end up with a lot of ace-x there. And I also don't think they'll have a lot of intuitive bluffs if I, like, check. So, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting spot. But in theory, definitely we can consider a check. Because I think we range bet the flop, and now on the turn we have a lot of hands that want to start checking, so. Interesting session. Let's go for another, like, 4 minutes or so, 4 or 5 minutes, and we'll call it. I'm gonna use a slightly smaller size because he's off 40 big blinds here. And I don't think people play super elastically. Queen 9 suited with 3 fish at the table. I will open it. I'm gonna range bet this double Broadway texture. It's good to have backdoor hearts. And a jack. We'll make that fold. So we turn a flush draw on the 3, so I'm going to be playing overbet and check. Against his exact stack size, the geometric size is what, like 8 big blinds or something like that? 8.5? Probably can ISO that hand sometimes. Just going to fold Jack 5 suited. Oh, we timed out. Okay. That's what I get for yapping so much. And then not a good river for us. So I think I'll block because he will have some. Actually, I think I'm just gonna give up that hand. Yeah, I think 7 probably calls a small block. I'm just worried about the continue range from the flop. How that looks on the river. He will have some flushes that check back on the turn to realize, and he'll have some king x and queen x. I don't think the block is going to perform very well. In terms of bluffing combos, our hand's not great. So if I was going to bluff, I probably wouldn't use in like a really big size. Alright. Thanks everybody for watching. If you guys like this, I can make some more content in this sort of play and explain format. And yeah, thanks for watching.